Good morning, Women on the Frontlines. This is Wendy Peter, the Global Director for our ministry, and we are launching week 3 of our summer devotional. This summer we have called our devotional, She is the Storm. And it's really the idea from 2 Corinthians 10:4 that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God for the pulling down of strongholds. And the question becomes, what are those weapons? Yes, we know there's prayer, there's fasting, there's things we can do, but we've centered in this summer on the forces of the recreated human spirit. Now, you may not have heard that statement before, but what I'm referring to is in Galatians 5:22 and 23, the forces of the Spirit, or the fruit of the Spirit. And so we started out by talking about love, and then last week we talked about joy, but this week our focus is on peace. And this is such a powerful weapon. Now, I want you to think about the idea that, she is the storm. And, in every storm, if you think about this, there is an eye of the storm. Have you ever heard of that? It means there's a place in the storm right in the center where everything is swirling around, but there is total peace. I think that's what I would love you to focus on this morning with me, is the idea that even in times where things are swirling around us in life, we actually can exist in a place of total peace. And I want to give you some keys to that today. So in the book of Galatians, that word that is used for peace is actually not the same word that is used in the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, the word is shalom, often defined as nothing missing, nothing broken, and that's a great definition of peace. But here in the New Testament, Galatians, we have the word atrene. And here's what it means: to join to tie together, quietness, rest, single-mindedness, one, and prosperity. Those are all aspects of peace in the New Testament that Jesus and Paul in this case were referring to. And so let's open this up together and look at what some of these words mean. Let's talk about to join to, okay? It's interesting that in the Old Testament, there's this wonderful verse that says in Isaiah 26:3, He will keep in perfect peace the one whose mind is fixed on him because he trusts in him. God will keep you in perfect peace when your mind is fixed on him. Have you ever noticed that when you're going through a lack of peace, it tries to pull your mind away from God? And so this idea of to be joined to and tied to is the idea that in the middle of the storm that's going on in our life, or the challenges, or the personalities, or the conflicts, or the financial struggles, or just doing life, there is a place where we can tie ourselves to God. We can tie our mind to God. Great is the peace of the one whose mind is fixed on God. And so when you're going through a time of trial, it's like there's a hamster on a wheel in your mind. Have you ever experienced that? It's like your thoughts become really chaotic. They're racing. They're going through all these things. I always say the devil is the author of alternative, narratives and possibilities, and things come at you like, whatever will become of us, what is going to happen? And yet we hear this promise to join to, or to tie ourselves to God, to tie our thoughts to him. So great is the peace of the one whose mind is stayed on him. And so meditating on the goodness of God is an amazing thing when you are going through a time of stress. And so what I've learned to do with that is I've learned to frame up his goodness in it, to frame up, okay, if I absolutely knew God is with me in this, what will the outcome be, right? Because usually peace is when you start to think that it's not going to work out. I like to say that hopelessness is a room with no doors. You're trapped, right? And we're in a place where we lose our peace. It's just like there's no way out. And so when we tie ourselves to God, we're often tying ourselves to his promises, things that he has promised us. And I'm going to go into that a little bit further when we talk about singleness, okay? But I want you to think about in the time of chaos, how do you draw your mind onto him? What can you do to lock your mind in and tie yourself to God? So think about roping yourself to the Lord in that time where you're losing your peace. Okay, the next one is rest. Rest. Peace means rest. As women, we love to fix everything, don't we? And I've learned a lesson over my 60 years of life that I'm not God and I can't fix everything. And I've also noticed that when I'm trying to fix everything, I'm not in a place of peace. When I learn to surrender it to God, surrender completely the problem, I start to regain peace. See, do I feel that it's all on me, or do I believe it's on God? That's what's really wrestling inside of you at that time. And I've kind of had these prayers that I've learned to say, you know, God, I don't know the answer to this, but I know that you do. And so I thank you that you're showing me what to do. Another prayer is, God, I'm just putting all these cares into a wheelbarrow and I'm bringing them to you, and I'm bringing them to the cross and I'm dumping them out. Why? Because I actually don't need to carry this, right? God challenges us to bring every care to him. Cast your cares upon the Lord because he cares for you. And so also to exercise peace, we have to move into a place of rest. Sometimes we're just so busy in life that we don't have physical rest, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but this is like emotional rest in the place of the storm. And then finally, there's this idea of single and one. And so what I've noticed with people is that we lose our peace a lot of times when we are trying to decide between two answers that are not the answer. Now, can you see the two items I have on the table here? My guy who's filming me, can you see these two items?
Yeah.
Okay, so here I've got, this is like us when we have, these are cute little salt and pepper shakers from my cottage. This is us when we're trying to decide something, and we're like, is it the salt or is it the pepper? Is it the salt or is it the pepper? And we're going back and forth in our mind, and a lot of times it's not. You see, we're in reasoning, okay? We're in reasoning. And there's a scripture in James that says the double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. He's tossed back and forth. Is it the salt or is it the pepper? And when we come into this process of peace, we actually have to open ourselves to the possibility that maybe it's not the salt and the pepper. Maybe it's something that we don't know. Maybe God wants to bring something in that we don't know. And you see, understanding is important in this. You see, we all have something inside of us called a knower. And a lot of times when we're doing this, we're trying to gather information. We're trying to make a decision. Like if I research this and I research this, I'll just decide. But you know, information is not the highest form of communication. Knowing is. And there's times where we actually need a download from God. It's not this, it's this. And the worst thing we can do is make a decision out of these two wrong possibilities. If you don't have peace, you shouldn't be making a decision. It actually says in the Bible, let the peace of God act as an umpire in your heart, deciding with finality every question you have. And so when we try to just go back in our mind, back and forth, and try to make a decision, we're not in the peace of God. We actually have to let it go, practice that place of rest, surrender, casting onto God, and invite new possibilities in. And in comes an answer that maybe we've never thought of. So that's another key that I've learned that's found in this word peace, about living in a place of peace. And finally, this word peace, listen to the definitions, okay? To join to, tie together, quietness and rest, singleness, one answer, right? Single, and prosperity. Do you realize that true prosperity is to live out of peace? You know, you can have all the money in the world and have no peace, and you're not prosperous. You see, you can even be healthy, but not have peace, and you're not prosperous. So when you have peace, even in the middle of a health battle, because I had one a couple of years ago where I almost lost my health completely, and I had to find peace, I had to find trust, I had to believe all these things we're talking about today. I had to believe that there was an answer, that God would bring me through that time where I was so sick, and I had to tie myself to the promises of God and let him pull me through that, looking for answers that I didn't know. During that time where I was sick, I changed my life completely. I was actually making myself sick with an autoimmune disease through some of my relational patterns, through some bad health choices. And really, the salt and the pepper shakers weren't what I knew wasn't working for me. And I was analyzing that till the cows came home. And then God had to bring in new answers, things I hadn't thought of, things I was willing to try. And that brought me through that health challenge, and I came out the other side. And so finally, what does it mean to cultivate a lifestyle of peace? I believe that it means we actually understand that peace is a force. It's a powerful force. It keeps us healthy. It keeps us strong. It's a vibration that comes off around us that affects everyone around us. If you're around somebody who's agitated and angry and unsettled, you feel it. And so when we cultivate a lifestyle of peace, we actually carve it out. I'm sitting in my lake house today, and in 2020, my husband and I made a decision to actually purchase a lake house so that we would have a place to retreat to in the summer that's really peaceful. We walk by the lake, we can hear the birds, we have a screen porch, we sit out there. You might not be able to have a lake house right now, but maybe there's a corner of your home that you can create as a peaceful place. The other thing we can do to cultivate a peaceful lifestyle is, ladies, we don't have to say yes to everything. A lot of times we're losing our peace because we're overcommitted, we're stressed out, and we're trying to say yes to everything, and we just can't do that. So sometimes, that oneness is actually the word no. No is an answer that requires no explanation, and that helps us to hold on to our peace because we don't get into places where we shouldn't be. So that's our devotional for today. We're working on She is a Storm. I want to challenge you to get into the eye of the storm, to cultivate peace. And I'd love you to share with me in the comments, what are strategies that you use for cultivating peace? Are there things that you know that you do that are really helpful to cultivate peace that you can share with the others reading or listening to this devotional that would help them step into peace? Thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you next week. Take care.